Well, let's go ahead and get the show on the road. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good morning so far. My name is Anthony, and I'm accompanied by my colleague Janet, and we're actually here to talk to you guys a little bit about email hygiene. So, before we dive into that, though, I do want to take a moment to establish who we are and what it is that we do here at NCDIT. So over here we have two beautiful individuals here, and I'd like to start off with myself. So, my name is Anthony, and I'm based out in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been in Arizona pretty much all my life, right? Prior to being with DIT, I was actually a Microsoft 365 Premier engineer who supported all aspects of the Microsoft 365 product group in the concierge department. I've worked with over 2,000 different businesses, ranging from small mom and pop shops all the way up until the major corporations such as Tyson Chicken, Sony, and several other EDU institutions to set up their Microsoft 365 tenants and get them on board with Azure. I was then moved over to the Learning and Development Department to assist with training Microsoft 365 engineers as a lead facilitator, while also hosting seminars to onboard international EDU institutions globally over to Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365 products. Fast forward a few years, I'm now here at NCDIT as the state's Microsoft Defender engineer slash specialist slash consultant to protect our email environment from malicious threats against the state. So that's just a little bit about me.
Hi,
And here we have
everyone.
Janet.
Yeah, some of you probably do know me. I've been with the state for almost 18 years now. I have over 20 years experience in IT. I started way back when we had Windows NT desktop stuff. So I've been around a while. Um, I really started getting into the idea of email security and hygiene. If you remember back in the early 2000s, we had those Melissa and I love you viruses, and they kind of really piqued my interest of what I wanted to focus on. It just took some time to get to that point. Life got in the way a little bit personally. Was living in New Jersey. We had a child, moved to North Carolina in 2006, and started working for the state in 2007 at the Department of Cultural Resources, as it was called. And then just basically have worked my way up through the agency after consolidation. And when I was finally put on the email team, I was able to really start focusing on the security aspect. And I was able to co-write our compromised user process. Once we started having serious things happen in the state where people were getting compromised. And then back in 2023, I took all of the documentation and I transitioned it to our Security Operations Center. Let's see. And for today's session, I'm going to introduce our objectives. What it comes down to is we'd like for everybody to be able to gain some knowledge from us. We want you to be able to understand some of the cyber crimes that happen and the impact when you're clicking on things and not verifying, and when you're not aware of the impact when you open an attachment, or when you do click on a link, or you do go to a bad website. We're going to tell you some basic information about email hygiene. We're going to give you some strategies to improve it in both your work and personal life. And then towards the end, we have written up a little game where we're going to ask you all to identify if an email is good or bad. And we're probably going to pick on somebody to say why they think it's good or bad. So hopefully we'll have some willing participants or victims. And at this point, I am going to turn it back over to Anthony.
All right, awesome. Yeah, someone's gonna get voluntold, that's for sure. So, all right, so let's go ahead and dive right on into this. In today's cyber landscape, we're seeing that a lot of the bad guys are actually getting smarter and smarter by the day, as they continue to utilize more and more elaborate schemes to trick folks into giving up their sensitive information. Now, one of the more concerning things that we found in today's studies is that 1 in 3 Americans have fallen victim to financial fraud or some sort of cybercrime in the year of 2023, myself included.
Me
Now,
too.
I think Janet actually had a pretty crazy one. Janet, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. This actually just happened about a month ago to me. It was not done through email, it was a phone call. And the bad actor was impersonating a police officer, called and told me that I was being arrested for failure to appear in a federal grand jury. Now, I'm very, very conscientious about my time and things I'm doing. So immediately I was nervous and was like, what are you talking about? What did I miss? And the entire call, you could hear like the little beep when you're on the phone with the police department. So it very much sounded legit. And this person proceeded to give me valid arrest warrant record numbers, I guess you would call it. So I then proceeded to say, well, if you could explain to me, how would I have known I needed to appear in federal jury? He said, well, we mailed it to your house. I said, okay, well, what was that address? And unfortunately, they had mailed it to my old address. I had recently separated from my husband and I had moved to a new place. So I said to this bad actor, I said, well, I'm sorry, I never received that. It went to an old address. And he says to me, well, what's your new address? My response, because I'm not normally very fast, but I was, well, if you're the police, shouldn't you have that new address? And when he could not provide my new address back to me, I started to get a little suspicious. Then, when they started telling me that they needed money and the credit card numbers, I was immediately like, okay, now it's my turn to have some fun. So I said to the gentleman, I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't possibly provide you information like a credit card over the phone. I don't do that. So if you'd like, I can come to the courthouse, but I can't get there today. I can be there tomorrow. And he continued trying to talk to me and get this information from me. And I continued stating, I can come to the courthouse tomorrow. First thing, I'll be happy to deliver a check to pay the fines. Next thing I know, he hung up. Very interesting because they either knew enough about me to know that I was the type of person that was never arrested before. I've never had to go to court or a federal jury. So immediately I was in a panic until I was able to start thinking about the situation and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is training. I need to remember what's going on here. So it can happen to those of us that do this every day for a living. You're muted, Anthony.
Luckily, I mean, it happened to me, of course, as well, but
Hmm.
mine wasn't as bad. It's gonna be embarrassing. It was for a video game that I hold very near and dear to my heart called RuneScape. And for those of you that know, like sometimes they have some new events and whatnot, but this one was like, oh, sign up now and register your account, and you get a sweet new pet that has +5 magic damage. I couldn't pass that up. So I clicked on it without thinking and then entered in my account information. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys already know what happened after that, but luckily for me, it wasn't anything crazy. I had the foresight to set up MFA on all my in-game banks, so they weren't really able to steal my stuff, but they were able to take the stuff off of my character. But it goes to show that even for us individuals that work in IT on a day-to-day basis, they can also fall victim to these sort of scams, especially when we have our vulnerabilities and we're not thinking about security 24/7. Now, of course, back to this particular thing, the consequences for falling for these sort of scams may not just be personal, right? It has cost billions and billions of dollars lost for US businesses alone. And it's projected to only get worse as time goes on, which begs the question of how these guys actually get away with it, right? How are cyber crimes nowadays so successful? Well, for one, it's believed that over 90% of cyber crimes and cyber attacks are initiated as phishing emails. So, according to statistics, 28% of major businesses are typically going to have a compromise, especially when an employee falls for some sort of phishing scam. 15% of those emails that the attacker sends out are then read and then responded to, which then leads to folks sending more and more sensitive data to the attacker, who can then use that information for all sorts of ways to squeeze money out of businesses, right? Or possibly even embed themselves deeper and deeper within the organization so that they can just eventually target and hit an administrator and wreak absolute havoc on a business. So you can tell that I've been doing this a lot, but it just goes to show that these guys are getting very, very smart when it comes down to taking advantage of folks. Now, before we move on, I think this is a good time to ask the question to you guys, right? And I think we should be able to set up a little poll in here, but how many of you guys have actually fell for phishing scams yourselves, right? I definitely want to be able to know that. And of course, the poll is completely anonymous. So right over here, you can just go ahead and hit that little check mark if you have, hit the X if you're an absolute saint, and just always thinking about security 24/7. All right.
All right,
And
I
we'll
answered yes.
yes, I definitely did. But yeah, we'll go ahead and revisit that towards the end of this presentation. And hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. Let's see. Moving on.
All right.
All right,
So
Janet.
this is the fun part where we get to give you some definitions. What is email hygiene? Email hygiene is our practice and techniques that we use to maintain clean, organized, secure mailboxes at home, at work. We want to make sure we manage our email account in a way that we're able to reduce our spam, meaning, not necessarily putting your business card in that little bowl on the counter for a free lunch where people can then have access to your information and send you spam. Phishing attacks, malware, cyber threats that we haven't heard of yet, so we're still trying to anticipate things. And then just keeping your mailbox clean will help you improve in efficiency and productivity. We do it through policies, tools like a firewall, possibly, or the antivirus software. But as we like to say, Anthony and I, it really does boil down to making you, the user, aware. And we'll get into some more email hygiene as we simply go through the presentation. But just keep in mind, email hygiene, art of reducing potential dangers of cyber threats towards you, whether you're at home or at work. Being vigilant is critical when it comes to the email. You might see something from somebody but you got to remember to stop and think, was I expecting this? Why would somebody be sending me an email for a voicemail? We don't normally do email voicemail situations like that. So again, awareness and being aware will help us lessen damage and threats to our personal life and the state. And it also will help us prevent unauthorized access, monetary loss, and a compromise for your account where we'll disable it. And I'm sure some of you have had that experience where your account has been disabled. And you do know what we have to go through in order to get it re-enabled, where you have to change your passwords, you might have to have your computer scanned. So it's not something that's fun when you are compromised, especially when it's happening multiple times to the same users. I have a little term that I have coined just so that I can make myself chuckle and not take it seriously. But I call my repeat clickers shiny happy clickers instead of shiny happy people. So people will hear that term and we just kind of laugh about it to make sure it's fun for the day and not take it too seriously and hopefully put people relaxed and at ease so that they don't think they've messed up. You know, of all things, we don't want anybody to think they messed up. It's a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, except Anthony.
Oh, thank you. No, but yeah, I think someone in the chat actually mentioned something about let's see, Miss Jet. Have AI become a tool for cyber criminals to use now? I think so. They definitely have a whole arsenal that they can typically utilize to fish and trick folks into giving up information. But that's why we have to be ever vigilant to ensure that we can actually protect our data. There will be signs towards the end of our presentation when we actually dive into the activity, just to give you guys a bit of a idea of what to expect. But hopefully it's not going to be anything too indistinguishable from legitimate emails. Just whatever you do, think about the request that's being asked, and try to think of any sort of scenarios in which you could possibly be giving out data. That's my biggest advice. So yeah, thank you very
And
much
Anthony,
for that.
just real quick before you go to the next slide and start your options there.
Yeah.
Mr. Bruce, so I just want to make sure if I understand your question correctly. Are you indicating that there's no way to report a message as malicious or something? Because when you have your email open, there is an option on the Outlook toolbar, as well as in your webmail, that says report message, I believe it is what it says, Anthony. Is that correct? And
Correct.
you can select report message, and then there's two options, junk or fish. And using those options, those messages actually do go to a queue where our enterprise security does review every single one of those messages. And there are a lot in there. Does that
We'll showcase
answer?
that
Right.
towards the end
And
as
does that
well.
answer? Let's
Oh,
see.
thank you, Mr. Price. We appreciate that.
Yes.
That's the button right there. That's going to be super important, especially if you have any sort
Yes,
of
ma'am. I just tried reporting two of those last night, and they kicked back from the old system and referred me to the menu system under Microsoft. I've just got the updates with the new computer, and it took me off the pathway. Thanks.
No problem. Glad we could help. We're always available through Teams. I might not respond right away, but I do get back to everybody, and I try to do it within about a 24-hour time period. So
yeah. If you have any questions about that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out. Alrighty. Moving on. So, we talked a little bit about email hygiene as a whole, but why do we care about email hygiene in general, right? How does this benefit me at the end of the day, especially if I'm constantly working? Well, for one, users who do practice good email hygiene typically have improved email efficiency. Because at the end of the day, what is the purpose of our work emails, right? To be solely used for work. You realize how much more efficient you are when you are not having to constantly delete or send things to junk, especially if you haven't used your work email to subscribe to any sort of sales at Sephora or maybe newsletters from Home Depot. And like a surgeon, you basically maintained a sterile environment for you to operate in, which is why we want to what we really want to expect from any sort of workplace, just suitable working conditions. Now, for two, good email hygiene also improves your personal productivity as well. And again, imagine coming into work in the morning and only having important work emails within your mailbox from the very start of your day. Zero solicitations, nobody's asking you to take a look at their third-party products, and of course, nobody's asking you to sign up links, click on links to sign up for cool new pets with +5 protection from magic damage. So ultimately, I think that's something that you can probably say for after work. Now, moving on from that, email hygiene also reduced costs towards the state. Now, while you guys may not be 100% aware of what happens behind the scenes, security is constantly dealing with, I'd say, a never-ending battle against bombardments of phishing attacks against the state pretty much every day. We have over 70,000 people here at NCDIT in this tenant alone that we're constantly trying to protect. And there's always situations that require us to take action against cyber attacks against our state agencies, right? While we've been pretty fortunate enough to not have any sort of major threats that require us to shell out thousands of dollars towards fixing major breaches yet, so knock on wood there, it's best that we continue to remain vigilant and practice good email hygiene to protect not only ourselves, but also our coworkers and of course our assets within the state. And finally, we got to make sure that we are mindful about email hygiene because this affects you and the people around you as well. While it's common for cyber criminals to gather data about businesses and organizations for nefarious reasons, that doesn't mean that your personal data isn't exempt from vulnerability. Right? Attackers will typically target individuals and gather as much information about you too in order to gain any sort of foothold and access into our tenant. They'll try to know birthdays. They'll try to get who you correspond to, typically your managers, all of that. And of course, during my time at Microsoft, I've seen cases where folks were, let's say, wiring money to their CEO's quote unquote vendor because they were expecting payments after they've negotiated some sort of project plan, only to find out that the vendor had not even sent them a payment plan yet, but it was still in the process of being itemized before they could actually 100% ship it out to the client. So in that particular scenario, blink of an eye, over $200,000 vanished from this business because no one was able to verify as to whether or not it was a fish or if there was some sort of attack. And there's very little that can be done at that point because this particular attacker took their time, was very patient, and it paid off. So ultimately, just be very, very mindful about who you correspond to and the requests that are being made, because at the end of the day, email hygiene is extremely important for our security. Okay. Questions about that? Will the report.spam at nc.com or nc.gov notify your team as well? We don't recommend utilizing that mailbox anymore. It's no longer in use. But the report message button up on the top right of your Outlook will actually notify our security teams to take a look at it. So report.spam has not been in use for, I want to say, almost a year and a half so far. So just make sure that you guys are utilizing the report message button whenever possible. All right. Moving on. Now, what can we do about it, right? How can we utilize email hygiene to protect ourselves from cyber threats that are out there today? Now, the biggest thing would honestly have to be awareness. Just simply being aware of how criminals utilize phishing scams can be a major difference in reducing the chances of compromise within a business. Pretty sure a famous guy once said, teach a man to fish and you'll feed him for a lifetime, right? Completely separate context, but for a criminal that's actively trying to phish us, Sure, they'll probably be very successful over time, but say we teach you, upstanding citizens, how to fish, right? I'm sure that this would ultimately reduce your chances of falling for it, especially if you already know how it works. So that's the hope, at least. The next big thing that we would want to stress is to not click blindly. You don't want to be a shiny, happy clicker, like what Janet talks about, right? And you always want to be able to verify folks, verify that the email that you're receiving is legitimate. And there have been many times where people fall for phishing emails because of a myriad of reasons. But there's some things that you always want to look out for when it comes down to phishing emails in itself. Things like typos within the email, right? Suspicious email addresses. Why is my boss sending me an email through AOL?
Or
Instead
Gmail
of
and
their yeah, exactly, right? You should be utilizing your work email, right, etc. But
or just real quick, Anthony,
yeah,
why is my boss asking me to go purchase something and telling me that he's not able to do something because he's in a meeting and he only has access to email? And these little things, your boss, so
mhm,
you should be aware of what that boss has access to. And more than likely, you should also know the tone of how you communicate with your boss.
yeah, 100%. But bottom line is, if you find something weird or just not normal, reach out to someone and verify that the email is legit. You can always reach out to people just to make sure that they actually sent that via Teams, right? Whether or not they sent out the email with some sort of request or perhaps a link to certain pages and stuff. It just never hurts to call someone and confirm. And then next up, we have regular inbox cleanup. So this is one of the main things that typically lead to issues for our users. Again, what is the purpose of our work emails, right? It's supposed to be used for work. If you find yourself stuck in a situation where you have signed up for newsletters that you simply don't care about, it's often best to just junk it and move on with your day. We don't recommend you click on any links within emails since that opens you up to vulnerability, right? Some places will have a unsubscribe button towards the bottom, and then clicking it will reroute you to their page. You have to fill out some sort of survey for why you're unsubscribing, right? I think most people are familiar with this, but there are times where it will ask you to type in some sort of email address that you want to remove from that list. And do we honestly want to risk having to type in any sort of information that could possibly lead to us having problems? Absolutely not. So at the end of the day, just junk it or use the report message button that's built in with your Outlook application to mark it as spam. And you could be like me as well, create some sort of rule to send any sort of emails with the unsubscribe button to junk. You can literally just set up some sort of rule that designates that any sort of emails that have unsubscribe in the body get sent to junk. That helps me out immensely, especially with my personal emails. Moving on from that, in order for us to keep up with email hygiene, it's best that we set up multi-factor authentication for all our email accounts for both work and personal. So say in a situation that you set up MFA for months in advance because you remembered Miss Janet and Mr. Anthony pounding away at email hygiene, right? When you suddenly have a lapse in your judgment and you give away your account information to some sort of cyber criminal, what do you think will happen? Especially when you have MFA? Probably not much, right? Because you had MFA on all of your accounts. You still may need to change your password, of course, but at least we have a second line of defense to ensure that you guys weren't compromised. And with that, we'll segue into strong password management, right? What do you think constitutes a strong password? Surely it's not a birthday, right?
Oh,
It
I'm
could
going
be
to use
your
my
own.
dog's name.
Yeah. It could be your kids' names, maybe even your spouse. Maybe it's the street address that you grew up on as a kid, or possibly it's your favorite sports team. Maybe even your school, high school, school lunch number in high school. But I feel like I nailed a good majority of you guys right off the bat so far. But what I'm saying is, you definitely want your passwords to be extremely obscure because it's very easy to guess if it's related to something that you care about. What we recommend is passwords that's longer than 12 characters, utilizes uppercase and lowercase, and maybe a few special characters sprinkled in, so that you can maximize your ability to secure your accounts. But I would recommend maybe something a little bit more robust, like, I don't know, a book or a poem, something that resonates differently and is a little bit more obscure, right? And for those of you that are utilizing Microsoft Authenticator, there's already a built-in password manager that's included within the app itself, especially for some of us that have already set up MFA. So if you wanted to secure your accounts with a random password, you definitely can. So long as you have your phone and the app installed, you can utilize the password manager to keep everything safe in there. I mean, everyone has a phone nowadays, right? In addition to MFA, we also want to include regular trainings as part of email hygiene because I'm sure some of you guys are often asked to complete security trainings here at NCDIT. There's a reason that we do phishing campaigns on the regular for most of our agencies. For one, it's to ensure that you guys remember to stay vigilant for any sort of threats against you or your organization. And for two, it becomes second nature the more you're exposed to it. So you'll be able to eventually spot them without having to be reminded for quite some time. And for three, this is just something that has been needing to be incorporated as time goes on. I mean, we're currently in an era of major technological advancements to the point where I think data nowadays is worth more than gold. So make sure that you guys keep your data safe from folks that want to misuse it. And then finally, we want to ensure that you guys are performing regular software updates as well, just so that you can have the most up-to-date firmware on all your applications and your devices. An updated application slash device means that any sort of glitches or vulnerabilities will be patched out, regardless of the 2 hours that you spend watching loading bars reach 100%. But it's definitely worth it for at the end of the day. Any questions in regards to the things that I just talked about? Checking chat because I haven't looked at it in a
Yes,
while.
I'm looking at chat. I got you covered with chat when you're talking. Don't
Perfect.
worry.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Jerry Price is helping us a lot. So thank you, Jerry.
Oh man, he must be wanting to present for us too. All right. Moving on. Now we actually have a video right over here. Oops. We have a video right over here for you guys so that you can actually take a look and see how people typically get compromised and stuff. It literally takes about, I think, 3 minutes for us to watch it. So we'll dive into that and then discuss at the end. Looks like we are okay. So I'm just gonna start it from the top. Sorry about that.
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills, they have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet? David Kennedy is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1. Spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
In this case, the company was paying David to hack them and see if their employees would fall for it. They did. To show you this demo, we agreed not to use the company's name. Kennedy hacks to protect. He's part of a growing number of hackers using this skill for good. Josh Corman's one of them too. He started a group to help bridge the gap between hackers and big companies.
Hacking is a form of power. Not surprisingly, as you walked into my house and saw all the Spider-Man stuff, I'm a big fan of the Stan Lee line of with great power comes great responsibility. We're coming to a point where the outside world, with a breach a week, a breach a day, affecting people's personal lives and national security, we got to grow up a bit, and we need to be very deliberate about how we use that power.
Corman formed the group after his mom passed away.
She was my science teacher. She kind of taught me that darkness is the absence of light, cold is the absence of heat. You know, if you see something missing in the world, maybe it's our job to put it there. I think the world's going to be whatever we want it to be and whatever we make it. There are very, very bad people, which means it falls to the good people to try to fight it.
You feel like you have a very personal responsibility.
We have so much potential to shape our culture, our values, our safety. If not us, then who?
All right, perfect. What do you guys think? How was that? Wow, thank you.
We have a hand raised.
Oh, yes, we actually
Oh,
have a hand
now it's
raised.
down.
Okay,
hold
never
on.
mind. Someone got scared. All right, it's all good. Don't worry,
Now
I'm
we're
quick in
going
my
to find you.
boots.
Nope. Candice, do you want to come off mute? And did you have your hand raised for a question?
Meant to
Okay,
clap.
that's what by accident. That was meant to
Okay.
be a
Okay.
clap.
No worries,
Okay,
no
not a
worries.
problem.
It's very close. Yeah,
It
no,
is.
it's very easy for people to get into your machine nowadays, especially if they just tell you to, you know, click on links and social engineer you in a sense. A lot of the times when it comes down to phishing in general, it is social engineering. They're trying to get you to do something that you're probably not supposed to do, and you have that full trust, right? So always be a little bit kind of suspicious about folks. It could be your manager, who knows, right? But I mean, if it sounds like them, if it seems to be them, especially on camera and stuff, I think you should be a-okay. But technology is getting a little bit scary where people can't emulate voices nowadays. So just be super, super careful with saying anything on the phone when you answer the phone, right? Hello, that's usually going to be recorded or emulated, and they only need about, I want to say like a 30-second clip of you saying something in order to emulate nowadays too. IT rep and verify employee info before filling the request. Yes, that is very true. So that's definitely one of the scary things as well. All right, cool. Moving on, Janet. I think this is all you
Yes.
know.
Yes, give me 1 second though. Catherine, yes, the political text messages on your cell phone. Unfortunately, political messages are exempt from the Ken Spam law back in 2002, I think it was, or
Well,
2003.
that's just wrong, Janet. That's
I
just
agree.
wrong.
I agree. I get every night during this presentation, my phone has been vibrating and it's all spam numbers.
Yep.
And they leave messages and it's, oh, vote for me, vote for me. So I am very, very sympathetic to it. I get it. We can't block it even. The emails, when they send us the emails, we
Yep.
cannot block it.
Just delete, delete, delete is all I do.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I am back in New Jersey. I worked for a company that was we did fax broadcasting, and the politicians literally would go out and buy a list of fax numbers and would take their ad campaign, post it down to paper, and fax it out. And the company was under investigation, trying to get sued. And we won because it was a political thing and we weren't allowed to block it. And it was very, very interesting to have that happen. So it's developing. I mean, I get it. The politicians, they want everybody to be informed. That's the way I look at it. So with that said, let's go to our activity because we're having fun with this. This is something Anthony and I like to do. We were joking around last night when we were practicing, and yes. So go ahead, Anthony. Let's see. We're going to pull up our first example. And what we want you to do is either you can call it out or you could just type it into the chat if you think it's a valid email or if you think it's a fish. So
Right.
with that, are we ready?
Yep.
All
Let's
right.
go ahead and send it. Example number 1. What do you guys think?
Fish.
All right, we got a lot of fishes in here.
Awesome.
Suspect, all of that. All right, cool, perfect. Now, can I have someone state why they think that this is a fish? Where in the email do you think it possibly could be a little bit suspect?
Hey,
The
Anthony.
crazy Gmail email address.
Yes. Could you zoom in a little bit, Anthony, to make it a little bit bigger?
Oh, that's a
You
really
have the
good
option
question.
to zoom.
I don't think I do. That's the problem. Whoops. Yeah, I don't have the option to zoom in. I'm so sorry.
All right.
The urgent message.
Yeah,
Yes.
urgency. Nothing is urgent, right, Janet?
Right, exactly. I always say it's not urgent. Is somebody going to die? Then no.
All right, cool. Moving on to the next one. All right, what do you guys think about this one right here? We'll give a slight pause.
Yes.
All right.
All right,
like-
we got it.
All right, moving on to our next example.
I like that. Just hungry. That's great. Yes. I'm always hungry.
All right.
Wait,
what do you
was
guys
that
think
one
about-
okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
number 2
legit.
was
You were right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sarah. I knew there was a way to do it. You got that, Anthony? Hold your
Mhm.
control button and
Oh, you guys will have to do that. I can't, unfortunately.
right.
Yeah.
It's got something individually.
All right. Looks like a lot of people are saying that this one is definitely a fish, and they're indicating that prize wings right over here is definitely suspect, right?
All right. You all know I'm going to take your name down, right? And then if I see you come up in our list, I'm going to have to call you personally, right?
Yup. All right. What about number 4? What do you guys think about this one? Oh, wow. A lot of people are saying that this one's a fish as well. Why is that the case? Anyone willing to volunteer?
Organization is spelled wrong.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right.
Organization, immediately. That's a red flag. And sometimes they can actually embed little HTMLs in there or yeah, all those little types of different
Right.
things.
Law
into your email.
clerk. Exactly. Exactly.
That,
Now, go ahead.
that email is weird, like emichael@msteam, whatever, all that.
Yes, you got it. It doesn't match the company.
Mm-mm.
Exactly. And one of the other things, before we, Anthony, go back.
Yeah.
One of the other things, I don't know how many of you are aware, when the DocuSign emails come through, if you have an actual valid DocuSign account, you can actually sign into DocuSign outside of your email, and there's an inbox in there. And you can go to your inbox. And if the message isn't in your inbox, it's just another way to know that this is malicious. And trust me, we do see this a lot where people are sent a DocuSign link and it's malicious. And usually when that happens, it ends up getting spread to everybody else. So always
Yeah.
try to remember that with the DocuSign. Look at your inbox DocuSign
Mm-hmm.
so that
Yeah,
you can
sign
tell.
in. Sign into your own DocuSign in another browser. I mean, there's been so many times where I get emails saying that my bank has like some sort of hold or decline and it wants me to click on that link to unblock it. No, don't do that. You always want to be able to check from the source, right? So go to your bank itself, like the website, and then actually check to see if there's any sort of issues. If there isn't, chances are you're A-okay.
Okay,
Cool.
and Miss Jennifer Bunton, what is your question?
I just wanted to say that I use DocuSign 100 times a day, and their emails do not look like this.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Other than
Yeah.
that blue box, they don't look like that.
Yeah.
So
I'd say
it was a
in general,
big obvious to me.
for anyone that doesn't use it though, that's the problem. So
Yeah.
if you're not dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, you could potentially click on it. Just be very, very careful.
Well, and Sandal said, are you expecting something for DocuSign? And that's spot on.
Yep.
So
yeah, so this one's a little bit small. You can go ahead and click on that in the chat, and I'll pin it as well for you guys so that you'll be able to see it on the very top if you need to. But what do you guys think about this one? It's long.
hey, you didn't skew my address there, mister.
Oh.
No, don't matter now.
Yeah, you should be able to do that. Hold down Control and use the mouse wheel.
Okay.
Ooh, we got some mixed.
Yes, we do. So how many of you are aware that our 401k retirement fund was sold from Prudential? Right? So it was
Yeah.
sold to a company called Empower.
I started getting emails of it.
Yes, exactly. So this is actually a legitimate email from Empower.
Yeah, I just found that out. Isn't that a shame? I went to my credential and it was like, wait a minute, what?
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It is a legit email. So I threw this in there because I said to Anthony, this is a good one because it is valid, but it really does show how tricky some of these companies can be and some of these bad actors can get and creative and everything. So yeah. All right. I think we're on our last example, Anthony.
Second to last.
Okay.
All right, what do you guys think about this one?
Yeah. Net zero.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing with this one specifically. I think Janet has a little bit of history when it comes down to
Yes.
it.
Yes. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but we can change our own direct deposit in our payroll system. We don't need to go through anybody in HR to change it. Number one. However, if you are an employee that doesn't have access to the payroll system and you do need to go through somebody, personally, I would not be sending it through email. I would be walking in and presenting a voided check. But I will say we have had situations where a direct deposit was changed. And in this case, the name was valid, the email signature was valid. Go ahead. Was there a question?
Probably not.
Okay. So the email signature was valid, had the person's valid state email address. The person receiving the email did either forwarded it or took care of it. Unfortunately, the due diligence wasn't occurring because the person's direct deposit was changed.
Mhm.
And the tip off in this is, even though the person's valid email was in the signature, if you look at that from, it's not a state email address.
Yep. And this can
So
happen to all sorts of organizations. Just make sure that
exactly.
when you're trying to, especially if you're working in the financial or HR field, just make sure that you guys are double checking to see what it is that they're requesting.
Right.
Typically, we always recommend that customers do their own thing first, and if they can't do it on their end, then that's where administrative action will probably need to be taking place, where we can do it for them. But in this case, there's probably some sort of problem. So
Yeah, they're asking for
yeah, I
their
want to
direct
update
deposit
my,
to be updated.
yeah,
And
don't
then
do
they're
that.
asking, what information does somebody need? So basically, they're gonna go on the back end and change the direct deposit routing number for your bank and everything else, and change the checking account number or savings account number. And it happens. It does happen. So my word is, my advice is for HR and finance, I pick up the phone and call someone. Don't even respond to the email. Pick
Mhm.
up the phone and call the person and say, are you sure you want to change your direct deposit?
Yeah, at least get some sort of confirmation.
Right.
All right, last one. Yeah, that's where you would actually have to ask for that phone number, probably.
And yes, Michelle, he has most of mine too.
All right, what do you guys think about this one? Yup. They're just rolling in.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, this one,
Awesome.
I think they were spoofing a specific director here at DIT, and ultimately, I think the tip off, right? A lot of people are saying, yeah, they're asking me to do something discreetly. Why is that the case, right? Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yep, wouldn't be using a private email. Perfect. Well, it looks like everyone's an expert in cybersecurity now, which is great. I think we can go home, Janet.
I know, right?
All right.
I can go take a nap.
So yeah, ultimately, what is email hygiene? It's really the art of reducing potential dangers of cyber threats towards you. Why do we need to know about it? It's to make sure that we can maintain efficiency and productivity while also protecting ourselves and our coworkers from compromise. How do we apply what we've learned? By really understanding how phishing works, you'll be able to reduce the chances of any sort of attacks that could possibly be successful, right? We want to be able to mitigate all those risks and potentials for compromise for ourselves, the people that we work with, and of course our personal lives as well. So make sure that you guys are aware of all the different things that you can possibly be tricked into doing, or perhaps any sort of suspect emails. And again, just be mindful of email hygiene as a whole and all the best practices that come along with it. All right. Perfect. I think that's pretty much about it. And if you guys happen to have any sort of questions, feel free to ping both myself and Janet. We will always be here for you guys, especially since we are part of the ECS team.
ECS team.
Yeah. So any sort of
Thanks,
email
everybody.
issues, let us know.
Yes, I just posted our email address, and I also said Teams. I mean, you can see us in Teams right now, so just last name, comma, first name should get you to us. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody.